All right, everybody, welcome to this week's Corn Belt Umpires Association Zoom lunch clinic / meeting. Probably be a little bit shorter than previous clinics and meetings. Just going to kind of talk about some mid-season stuff, reminders, some things that we've observed or had get brought to our attention. And so it should be a little bit shorter. And then over the next couple weeks, we're going to be talking about a lot of situation handling. And then we'll also talk, we'll review some stuff before postseason begins. And I looked at the calendar today and we are, I want to say about 45 days away from the Legion State tournament. So the end of the season is quickly creeping up on us. And so I just want to kind of talk about a couple things first. First is communication. And I'm going to share my screen here. So if you don't know how to use the CUA website, click on members, prove you're not a robot. It will take you to the member list, which shows who all members are. It has cell phone numbers. Make sure we contact partners before games. I've already confirmed with my partner tonight, and we are popped, locked, and ready to rock. I'll pull this out. For more locally with Corn Belt, if you look at our summer fees, if you look at our fee sheet, you will also see that we have compiled a fair number of contacts for coaches. I'm working on getting that updated. And with that, making sure that we contact coaches, reach out to them. We had rain come in this morning, and from what I saw, it was a lot of rain up in this area. And so making sure that we reach out and communicate to coaches, hey, here's who's coming today. That is the expectation. Even at the high school level, working over in Minnesota, that is the expectation there. At the college ranks, it's absolutely the expectation. And summer, you have weather to contend with. During the springtime, you got class schedules. South Dakota having baseball as a club sport, you gotta work around sanctioned stuff. Like I had a playoff game that literally got moved because of a golf tournament. So making sure that we stay in constant communication with coaches is a great way to build a first impression, especially if it's a coach that you've never seen before. If it's a coach you've already seen before, you're just setting the tone for the game. And at different levels, the college level depends on the conference, how soon they want us to reach out. At the Minnesota high school level, and Terry, if I'm horribly wrong on this, you can correct me, but my general rule of thumb is about 48 hours is what I check in with. And then for like South Dakota stuff, I'm either the night before or day of. And that's simply because I know I'm going to Brandon tonight. And my recollection is that their Legion team played last night. Well, I don't want to bug Van Heel about tonight when he's worried about last night. So when you reach out, don't do it so far in advance where you have, like at the college level, like, you're going to have midweek games. And so if I'm working a weekend series, I'm not going to reach out on Monday for a game on Saturday. I'd reach out, Wednesday or Thursday when that game is more on that coach or that athletic director's radar. If you're missing contact information, let me know, and I will try to get that to you. Making sure you communicate to your partner, making sure we also check in at games. We're still hearing that we had a lot of guys that don't check in. on a game day, coaches, they want to get done with their pregame stuff. They got likely stations, they got pitchers warming up, they got fielders warming up, then they got ground balls, they got to do IO, BP. And so having, just showing up and saying, hey, we're here, we're good to go, is just one less thing that they have to worry about. I pulled up last night and said, hey, we're here. And the coach's first comment out of his mouth was, hey, thanks for checking in. It goes a long way. And just like, send a text message, it shows we're here. This is the tone of the game that we're going to have. We're going to go out here, we're going to work our tails off, and we're going to do this in a professional way that is expected of umpires. So you're just building rapport. You're building, I'm not going to say a longer leash that you're going to get with a coach, but you're definitely going to start the game off the right way. I don't know if anybody's bothered to look at the forecast for this weekend, but it is going to be hot. It's going to be miserable. But it's still baseball weather. Make sure you hydrate. We have, frankly, more games than I can count this weekend, and we are shorthanded for umpires still. If somebody goes down, we're already in a pinch, and if somebody goes down, it's going to make that pinch a lot tighter. So making sure we hydrate, and hydration, nutrition, stuff like that, it's not just day off. Sometime I might do a clinic on, how do you prepare your body to go work a game, and what that looks like. But making sure, we're not just, hammering, and I'm totally guilty of this, but hammering a Red Bull before a game. Making sure we're drinking water. And there's a bunch of great hydration tools out there, but just making sure that we're, taking the steps necessary to be ready to umpire that weekend or for that game. I already talked about contacting your partner. There is a more refined list of all the Corn Belt umpires. If you don't have access to that list, please let me know. Everybody should have access to it, but if you don't, I want to make sure you have access to it. I'm going to circle back to hydration and the heat and the temperature, and I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here. There's a couple things that I can't stand in umpiring. First is no shows with no communication. The second one is probably plate dodging. Everybody's got to work the plate. That's just the way it is. You don't get to show up for a doubleheader and be like, oh, I don't want to do the plate tonight. That's just not being a good partner. Don't plate dodge. It's, first off, it makes a crew look bad when you have somebody going out there for back-to-back games. And it's more work on the plate guy. As people get older, recovery times take longer. It's not fair to your partner to plate dodge. And the higher you go, we have a saying, you want the plate. That's don't get me wrong, I like working the bases, but I'm a lot more comfortable working the plate. So don't plate dodge, especially when it's this hot out. I get it. You can be doing 2, 3, 4 games a day. I get it. If you got to take breaks, take a break. Know what your physical limits are, but don't take a bunch of games and going, oh, I'm just going to work the bases all day today, because that's not going to fly. I'm not saying that we've had that problem. It's just kind of more of a general reminder. We have transitioned now between high school and now we're doing Legion ball. Make sure we know what rules set we're playing under. because, and Jesse's probably going to correct me on this, but I want to make sure that I get this as right as I can. Class A. So for most of the people on this call, Sioux Falls, Harrisburg, Brandon, Renner, Brookings, Yankton, Mitchell. I think those are really what people on this call are going to be working. If you have one of those teams and it's below 16U, you are using NFHS rules. If it's Class B, it is either Legion rules or VFW, which the base rule set for that is OBR. If you're working Class A Legion or Junior Legion, you're using Legion rules. Am I correct on that, Jesse?
Yes. Now, just a heads up, there are some caveats between Senior Legion and Junior Legion. The Junior Legion, over the last couple, 3-4 years, they have started to migrate more towards the NFHS book, where, for instance, they will, you can, before I stick my foot in my mouth here, I got the book in front of me, where you have been able to use basically the high school DH rule. Let's see here. Before I give you bad information, just hop on the website and it'll on the SDUA website and it'll have the juniors on there. I guess the beauty and the curse
you
is
all see the
it's there.
Okay.
The beauty and the curse is most of those Junior Legion coaches don't have a clue what they're playing under, so that gives you a little leeway in case you're not quite sure. But that also means you still got to know, so you know what to and what not to enforce. But the base is the base for both legions is MLB. But there, like I said, there's more caveats to the Junior Legion book that kind of more mimic the high school rules. I'm kind of getting to the point, and I've talked to some Legion commissioners. This is all set by national, so the South Dakota Legion guys kind of have to follow national. But I said, hey, if you talk to somebody, we're kind of to that point where, maybe Junior Legion just uses the high school book rather than having all these exceptions. But you know how that goes. There's a lot of old blood in some of these programs, and the reluctance to change is
I know nothing
there.
about that. I know nothing about that, Jesse.
Right.
So
anyway, sorry.
The rules sheet that Jesse is referring to can be found under documents, rules, excuse me. And then if you go to American Legion Baseball right there, it's right there. So know what rules you're working. Force play slide rules there, the DH rules there. Lots of good stuff that we need to make sure that we know what rule set we're working. And I mean, I will say that I'm guilty of the mentality of, well, if we get it, we're going to get the calls as close to right as we can, and then we'll go from there. But trying to make sure that we don't have to get together to say, oh, hey, this is, what is the exact rule here, is important.
Hey, Jake, just for the group, there is a new rule in Legion Baseball for both levels. The fake tag is now considered obstruction.
Oh.
So anything high school, Legion, it's not technically a rule in VFW, but I don't think if you would enforce it as such, because even if it's not illegal, it's Bush League. Yeah, go ahead and if nothing else, get it. So anyway, just a heads up. That'll be coming out in an upogram here shortly.
I was just going to ask if that was going to come out in an upogram, because that's a huge change, I guess. Because I literally Jesse, I kid you not, I had like 4 or 5 of them last night, and I just looked at the second baseman or shortstop, and I just went, "Are you serious? Like, do not make my job any harder."
Right.
Like, I realize you can do it now, but when you do it in the spring, you're just asking me to do stuff, and I'm gonna get yelled at, and I'm sick of getting yelled at. And so making sure that gets disseminated to everybody, would be a huge help, I guess. As the temperatures get warmer, as the season gets later on, tempers flare, make sure that the ejections that we get stick, frankly. Make sure that we're not just running to run. Last night we had a situation where I had an assistant coach, or I had a head coach who was discussing a call with my partner, and the assistant coach was trying to creep out of the dugout, and I saw it right away, and I immediately went and put him back in the dugout, and he was still barking from the dugout. Coach told him to shut up, which I really appreciated. I have a great rapport with this coach, and he took care of him right away. But then as we were going back to our positions, the assistant coach started barking again, and I told him to stop. And he's like, "What? I can't say anything?" I said, "Yes, you are correct. You cannot say anything." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Because you're an assistant coach. You cannot say anything by rule." I didn't warn, because what he was saying, given the context of the situation, yes, it was projected. But it's one of those situations where if we warn, you're going to have an ejection simply because you give a warning. And the ejection, you don't need to eject in that situation. What he said was, if I put what he said in an ejection report, I'm willing to bet that Jesse's going to call me and go, "What was that?" Because it was never once was it profane. And it was just, it was a conversation from the dugout to the foul line. Like that's not worth an ejection. So make sure we get warnings in. This is your warning. If you continue, you will eject yourself. And it's also okay if you miss it, or admit it, move on. So that's kind of my spiel, and you'll hear me reiterate this throughout the next couple weeks, because I know for a fact Jesse doesn't want to get a ton of ejection reports where they really shouldn't be ejections. And you just make Jesse's job a little bit more difficult. Are we having a lot of ejections this year, Jesse? I have no idea.
So this is the first year we've actually reported them through our association. So I really don't have a benchmark as to how many we've had. Dane with high school baseball said there have been more ejections this year than in the past. However, we really didn't, I would say, push ejection reporting back then. So, again, are the statistics skewed? I'd say maybe. I think we've had, 3 Legion ejections so far. 2 have been by the same head coach who's no longer coaching. He was, I guess he was relieved of his duties based on the 2 ejection reports we filed.
Mm-hmm.
We had, I think, maybe I'll just say a dozen high school ejections. And then a couple there was a class A one and an amateur one. So not a ton, maybe 1 or 2 a week. So, which is good. I hope everyone's reporting it. If they are, that's good. But to your point, Jake, I haven't seen any where I'm like, yeah, that was probably borderline. We probably he could have stayed in the game. Most of them they're pretty cut and dried. The old draw the line in the sand, the 4-letter words, it's all pretty much boilerplate ejectable stuff. So
yeah, and if we have those, just so Jesse, I can help with the conversations on those too, because
sure.
That's what
Yeah, like I said, I haven't had any yet where I'm like, oh boy, yeah, we probably got a little hot-headed there. So they've, like I said, they've been pretty cut and dried. Forward them off to the appropriate people and move on with your day. Like, right. Well, like as you said, they ejected themselves. There really wasn't much to do here.
Yeah. So just, it's something to consider because, you know, there's only a finite amount of time in my day. And when I have, you know, if we hear about something from, you know, if I hear about something from Mark, you know, I'm expected to go and deal with it, for lack
Sure.
of a better term. And so, you know, if like I had an umpire call me last night about almost running a coach. I don't care about almost running a coach. I'm sorry, I don't have time for those types of discussions. It's not conducive. Like you don't learn a lot from not ejecting. I mean, you can learn, oh yeah, I should have ejected in this situation, but it's not productive, I guess, is what I'm saying. But do make sure you're submitting the ejection reports. At some point in time, I'm going to do a brief, I'm going to do a 10-minute, here's how you write an ejection report. Because I have heard from coaches that, I heard from a coach last night, he's like, yeah, there was one time where like I absolutely tried to go get tossed. And my first response, or he's like, they're making them report him this year, aren't they? I'm like, yeah, they are. He's like, oh, well, that was probably it. And then I responded with, well, what was the temperature of the game? And he's like, oh, it was freezing cold. I'm like, yeah, that's why. That's exactly why you didn't get tossed. And so, but you know, making sure that ejections stick. That's the big thing. If we're gonna have an ejection, it's gotta stick. Period. When you have ejections that don't stick, we have to deal with it from an administrative side. And then you just lose credibility. So making sure that make sure they stick. If you have questions, you know, and my little spiel about, you know, not ejecting, and telling me, like, if you want honest feedback, you can like feel free to call me. I'll give you my honest opinion. But I just don't need the stories. Oh, I almost ejected, and here's the story. If you want to learn, give me a call. But I don't have time to listen to, oh, I almost ejected a coach. Couple things on, I guess this is really the last topic that I had. Mechanics. You know, timing. Make sure we're taking our time on these calls. Proper use of eyes, proper use of voice. Mechanics, making sure our mechanics are solid. Know who has what responsibilities. The one that I've heard a lot about is something that Mark and I talk about. It's the 3 times on one play. Once time is out until the ball is put back into play. There's an old umpire school gag where there will be some manufactured situation by the instructors. Then one coach will call time, go talk to his pitcher. The other guy's gonna call time, go yell at the umpire. Then the one coach is gonna go back, and he's gonna come back out again. He's the coach that the defensive coach went to his mound already. He's gonna call time again and go out and yell at the umpire. And I mean, sometimes you end up just seeing this time, and you have time being granted like 4 or 5 times, and it looks silly. And so if you know, the times that you see this happen most frequently is you have a hit by pitch, and then the defensive coach wants to make a trip. So, you know, time, got him here, send him to first. Coach pops out, out. Hey, Jake, can I get time? It's already out. Go ahead. That's all we got to do. You know, general hustle, you know, the pay rates have significantly increased over the last year or so, making sure that you know, the effort you put in is reflective of what you're being paid. You know, if these associations would be paying this much money, they have a certain degree of expectation in what they're going to get, and that is a completely reasonable expectation. So making sure that you know, the effort's there. that is what I have as far as my notes are concerned. So if we don't have any questions, I will shut the recording down, but then I'll leave the Zoom call open for a little bit. If you've had any weird situations or just have any questions that you don't want to ask while we're recording. Seeing none, I will stop the recording.